feels like a triumph. The 390 Duke, what a smashing engine. Hello and welcome to PowerDrift. So happy to see you here. On this episode, the 390 Duke goes up against the Speed 400. And if you've narrowed down to these two motorcycles, congratulations, you've already narrowed down to two really good motorcycles in their own regard. But actually, when you get down to the nitty-gritties and actually look at them closely, they are very different. So this is not an apples to apples comparison, more like an apples to orange comparison. But with that, let's get started. If you are new to the channel, do remember to hit the subscribe button. If you've been following PowerDrift for a long time, please remember to refresh the notification bell. And with that, we start off with the engine. We'll start off with the 390's engine, and what a smashing engine. It's still very much a Duke in that sense because it's still a very peaky motor, comes to life after 5000 RPM. Till about 5k it feels like this nice sober setup, but once you cross that line, it's an animal. It's smashing. I absolutely love it. So entertaining, so aggressive,
so beautiful, so elegant,
so wild, so exciting. I think for Gen 3, the mid-range has gotten slightly better, but all of that drama is still in the top half of the spectrum. Heat management has gotten better. It does not heat up as much. The refinement has gotten better, but it's still not the most refined single-cylinder engine out there. And to finish things off, the quick shifter. I would like to call it quick shifter 2.0, and KTM, I feel, have finally gotten it right, because through the course of about 4 to 5 days of testing, not even a single misshift, not even a single false neutral. All in all, a package that I absolutely am in love with.
Found you. This is my turf, what you wanna do? Hope you got you a squad when I come for you. We the underdogs, but we not under you. We come for W's. This ain't nothing new. Ooh.
Now moving on to the Speed, this is a much calmer sort of a state of tune. It is still, of course, a single cylinder. It is pushing out a lot of performance, but not as much as the Duke, and you can always feel that in terms of the mannerisms of the engine. Firstly, there's torque right from the get-go. I was telling Varun earlier that it almost lurches forward when you leave the clutch. That's how much torque is available. Actually, often I found myself reaching a stoplight in second gear because you can always stay in a higher gear at low RPMs and there's always torque available. The low end and the mid-range are superb on the Speed 400. You almost never feel like you're in a gear too high. It just always has the performance to give you. Yes, you lose out on some of the top end, but I think that's okay for a motorcycle that's primarily supposed to be ridden in the city. Now, we did face some issues when we first rode the Speed 400 in terms of refinement beyond 80 kilometers per hour, but we haven't faced those with this motorcycle. Triumph has said they are also adding more rubber to the foot pegs. They've already done that on the Scrambler. They will be doing that on the Speed. This motorcycle does not have it, but it also does not have those significant vibes, which is strange. Maybe it's been running for longer and that's one reason for it.
We open the cleaners, we know that we mean it.
There's no quick shifter either, and there's no complaints from me on that. This is not a motorcycle that's meant to be ridden at full pelt, and the gearbox is nice, smooth and clicky all the time. So I think that is great. Heat management, again, not a pain point for the Speed 400. We've not faced any issues with it so far. One final point is that it sounds really good.
Stop blaming that Wi-Fi, that ain't it. We pop out and you looking clueless. Time to say bye-bye.
The 390 Duke was always known for a firm ride setup, and I think that has carried on to the Gen 3 Duke as well. But the one thing to note here is that it's not back-breaking firm. It's firm in a really nice way. It does not unsettle you. And talking about this unsettle and settle thing, I think it never feels out of place. At slow city speeds, it feels nice. But the moment you pick up speeds, I feel the suspension starts to work a little better. The motorcycle becomes a little more settled. Its ability to take on speed breakers, potholes, undulations just goes 2 notches higher. The biggest thing that KTM could have given us enthusiasts, adjustable suspension. So compression and rebound on the front, rebound and preload at the rear. And I think that's a fantastic thing. The spectrum might not be big, but for you as a consumer to have that power in your hands, to have the ability to make your ride better, I think that is fantastic and I really like it.
Man, it can stir up your clan in a panic. We won't leave here empty-handed. You're getting a blink and your team's gonna vanish.
Now on the Speed 400, the characteristic of the powertrain where it is better suited for the city also applies to the suspension setup. It is really comfortable, but it is still firm. This is a sporty motorcycle at the end of the day. Below 80 kilometers per hour, the suspension feels absolutely fine. It deals with potholes and bumps a little bit better than the Duke as well. When you go beyond that speed and you start to hit higher speeds on the highway, it tends to get a little more unsettled when you hit those potholes. But I don't think that's too much of a problem. Again, this is a motorcycle that's primarily designed for the city. You do miss out on adjustable suspension, but there is a big price gap between these two motorcycles, so you do expect some gap in terms of equipment as well. But overall, the Speed 400 is a motorcycle that's really comfortable in the city.
We don't care about the rules, we care about winning. Don't think about quitting, it's just the beginning. Don't hold back, we with it. You thinking you did it till we come and flip it.
The 390 Duke was always a good handling motorcycle, and that experience has been carried on to the Gen 3 390 Duke as well. Less unsprung mass, less overall weight, better mass centralization. So when you put all of these things, not only on paper, but also when you translate those things in real life, it's a very enjoyable experience. Feels nice to steer at low speeds, feels nice to steer at high speeds. And I think not just nice, but I think the way it steers, it's quick to respond. It feels so nice. You get acquainted with that whole experience so easily. So I've got absolutely no complaints there. I think I am in love. I absolutely love it.
Time to say bye-bye. We overachievers, we come and unload on you.
And now we'll move on to the Speed 400. Now on paper, this is a larger motorcycle that's also heavier. And when you start to roll off the clutch, you'll actually feel like it's actually a heavy motorcycle, a much higher capacity motorcycle. But thankfully, that's not the case. As soon as you start to pick up speed, and I'm talking maybe even 10-15 kilometers per hour, all of that heaviness is absolutely gone. It feels nimble and very nice even when you're going through traffic. Very quick to change direction. Of course, not a sports bike out and out like the Duke tries to be, but it is still a good handling motorcycle. Now, one final thing I wanted to add is balance. This is so well balanced that Varun has been egging me on to do a slow race. And although I haven't gotten around to doing it, but when you come to a stoplight, you can actually play a game with yourself as to not keeping your legs down for an X amount of time, and you'll be amazed at how well balanced the Speed 400 is. The looks department might be a space where a lot of us are going to be divided, because for me, the Gen 3 390 Duke looks really nice. I know Karan does not like it. He prefers the Gen 2 over the Gen 3. But I would like to know what you guys think. Is the Gen 3 390 Duke a good looking motorcycle? Let us know in the comments. I think it is. Talking about quality, I think the overall quality of parts, switchgear, paint has gone up 3-4 notches above than the Gen 2, and I think that's a big thumbs up from my end. I love how glitch free the display is, and overall I feel a department where KTM was lacking probably with Gen 1 and Gen 2. All of those things are really well done with the Gen 3. And now let's move on to the Speed 400. And when we first saw it at the launch, one of the first things that stood out to us was fit and finish. This is international world-class levels of fit and finish. I mean, it feels like a Triumph. No price tag attached to it. It feels like a Triumph. Of course, the switchgear, the handlebar, all that stuff is finished really well. But for me, it's the stuff you don't see at first. The backs of the mirrors, the exhaust guard, the heel plate, all of it is beautifully done. I think fit and finish is a 10 on 10 on the Speed 400. In terms of the looks, this is a roadster, so it's going to be definitely more subdued and a little more classier than the Duke. And I think Triumph has executed that roadster thing really well in the real world. It feels modern, and yet there are some retro vibes to it. And I feel the mature ones amongst you will gravitate towards the Speed automatically. And of course, you can get it in colors that are not as eye-searing as the Duke's orange. One niggle I have in terms of the fit and finish is the speedometer. I'm not a fan of how the information is displayed. I do like analog clusters, but I would have liked an analog speedo and a rev counter, or maybe just an analog rev counter and a digital speedo. I'm just not a big fan of how the info is displayed there, but a very small niggle in a very nice positive pond of goodness. The 390 Duke is a street fighter. Upright handlebar, rear set foot pegs, and sure, it can be used in the city, those small Sunday runs. But overall, for someone who is about 6 feet tall, this ergonomic riding position might feel a little uncomfortable. Of course, you have the option of having a 20 mm taller seat. Right now, it's at 800 mm. At 820 mm of seat height, things might get a little better for taller people, but I don't see a world of change between 800 and 820. Also, the 390 Duke for me was never a tourer. I think majorly because of how cramped I felt personally, ergonomically on the 390 Duke, and I don't think it is going to be a tourer even with the Gen 3 version. Overall, if you're below 5 feet 8 inches tall, I don't think there's going to be any problem. But anything above that, and you might feel a little cramped on the 390 Duke. The Speed 400 is a roadster, and because of that, immediately you have more space, a little bit more comfort, and just a little bit more breathing room compared to the 390 Duke, which should automatically make it a little easier for long distance touring. Now, this has a soft seat which you can really feel adds to the comfort level of the Speed 400. Just a little bit more cushiness when you're going over bumps, and I think that's great to have, especially with the road conditions that we have in some of our cities. Overall, in terms of the ergonomics, the seat height is not a problem. It's got a nice wide handlebar. The pegs aren't as rear set as the Duke, so you automatically sit in a nice, comfortable, upright position, and it's great.
We won't leave here empty-handed. You're getting a blink and your team's gonna vanish.
3.1 lakh rupees. It's only 13,000 over the Gen 2 variant, and I think it still is fantastic value for money. Please remember that we are in 2023. Back when the first Gen 390 Duke was launched, that was a different time, a different era. And after all these years and looking where the industry is today, I still think it is value for money because look at what you're getting. You're getting a fantastic motorcycle, a fantastic engine, a suite of electronics, a quick shifter that works really well, a display that is flawless, adjustable suspension that for me is the highlight of the equipment package. And let's not forget that KTM is known for affordable service and spares. The network is a lot better. 3.1 lakh rupees, if you have that money with you, of course you have to pay a lot more to get it on road. But if you're looking for a 390 Duke, there's no other motorcycle that goes up against the 390 Duke. It's such a solid, individual, independent motorcycle. I am in love to the point that I might even end up buying it. That's how much I enjoy the riding experience of the 390 Duke. The one thing that can be changed or could get better, tires, but it's also not an awkward or a weird rim setup. 1717, if you want better tires, you have the H1s, you might get the Metzeler W-rated tires. So very few things to complain about. But overall, the 390 Duke is a water product.
See if I've gotten in your head yet. Gonna put you to bed, like a story we leaving you red.
Now let's move on to the Speed 400, and I personally feel there's even fewer things to complain about here. First, you save about 80,000 rupees compared to the Duke. Of course, you don't get the outright performance of it, but you still get a really fast motorcycle, a motorcycle that is finished really well, that is comfortable in the city, should be comfortable for long distances as well. Okay, you don't have as wide of a service network as with KTM. You do still have a lot of Triumph showrooms, and Triumph is working on expanding their dealership network very quickly. In fact, on social media, I keep seeing more and more Triumph showrooms popping up left, right and center. So that is great to see. But it will, of course, take a long time for Triumph to catch up to KTM in that regard. But if you have a Triumph dealership near you, you're interested in the Speed and you're not looking for too much speed, the Speed 400 makes absolute sense. You get a really well-finished motorcycle, and I think there's very few things to complain about. I think the tires are, again, brilliant on the Speed 400. You get the Apollo H1s or the MRF steel base set of tires. We've had great experiences with both tires. The only nitpick I have is the Speedo, but again, very small nitpick, and I don't think you will have a problem with that whatsoever. I think both of our hearts goes towards the 390, but if this was supposed to be a brain choice, for me it'll have to be the Triumph. At the start of this video, we said the 390 Duke against the Speed 400, but after having ridden hundreds of kilometers and experiencing these motorcycles individually over so many days, I think it is fair to say that the 390 Duke is a super motorcycle, and so is the Speed 400. Highly recommended by the both of us. If you like the 390, test ride the 390. If you like the Speed 400, test ride the Speed 400. Like they say, different folks for different folks. Anyways, these are two different motorcycles. Do let us know which one you prefer, the Speed 400 or the 390 Duke. Varun and I will see you later on another video.